The 2024 NFL Draft is fast approaching, and it's time to talk about it. However, I could use a little help. So this week, I called in some friends from the If These Balls Could Talk podcast, Mark and John.
I'm just talking about, it's the only guy whose name I could remember.
He had a lot of personality. I'm going to have sex with the Egyptian president.
Jacoby Brissett's an asshole. You've heard it here first.
At least he was like 10. Yes.
Welcome to Shut Up Football. I'm Jeff Stoltzfus. That's Kevin. And joining the show now are the hosts of the If These Balls Could Talk podcast, Mark Pesce and John Campagna. Guys, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for having us.
We're really excited to be here.
For those of you who don't know, I've actually been on their podcast twice now, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
You guys have been nice enough to have me on, and now I can finally return the favor.
We're now scheduling season 6.
Yeah, you guys are cruising.
Well, we have like 11 episodes per season, so we do like 3-4 seasons in a year.
And we chose that number completely randomly.
I have a couple of get-to-know-you questions first, and then we will move on to NFL Draft. First, I got to know, because I don't think we ever talked about this, whose idea was the podcast?
It was Mark's idea. Mark literally, and for everybody who doesn't know, Mark and I have known each other for 20 plus years. And so Mark and I have talked about a lot of crap. And randomly last fall, Mark was just like, you know what? I've been watching a lot of sports talk radio shows, and I think we should start a podcast. And like to a large group. And I'm always down for everything. So I told Mark, I was like, I'll start a podcast with you. That sounds great. And then we peer pressured our friend Pete. Pete being our secret weapon, who can't be here today, but he's a hobby audio engineer, he is actually a professional video engineer now. And so he used all his powers and helped us sound legitimate and look legitimate, which was really, really helpful. And so Mark, we decided to do it. And we were like, well, our friend Katie, who works for Ecamm, our friend Katie Fox, she was like, well, what you got to do is you just got to record. And so that's what we did. We just recorded ourselves. It sounds like shit comparatively to the way we sound now, but we recorded ourselves and we put it up on a podcast hosting website, and we just kept going. And we got better as we went. We incorporated YouTube in season 2, so we stream live our recordings to YouTube now. And we actually have a disc. We record on Discord, right? Mark's in Rhode Island and I'm in New York, and so we record on Discord, and we have a thing called Craig. Craig, being a free Discord bot, record us, gives us FLAC files, and then I edit and kind of combine the FLAC files and add all the stupid sounds, and we push out a 90-minute MP3 that we send to the podcast sites now. It's pretty awesome, honestly, and it works really well. We don't really think about it anymore.
No, it's all become natural. I mean, basically, what John and I are doing we're just now recording with an audio and video with like a live audience of stuff that we just have done all of our lives as long as we've known each other. Because I mean, John is like the stereotypical New York sports fan. I'm the stereotypical Boston sports fan. So we're always kind of talking shit about each other's teams and cities and whatnot. Like
I'm the correct one and you're the one who isn't correct.
Exactly.
Is that what we're saying?
Exactly.
All right, cool.
Well, and you mentioned Pete, which we do miss today, of course, but hopefully we can have him on in the future. And you also mentioned the fact that you guys are all fans of different teams, which is part of what we'll get to when we get to talking about the draft, as we all have different teams. We're all from different areas. Pretty interesting, as we can all kind of be our so-called expert on what our team needs.
I wore my Tommy Cutlets shirt for you, Jeff.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Italian salute.
You talk about sports, but you also talk about pop culture and news. What made you want to start a podcast where you talk both about Israeli bombings and the New York Mets?
Basically, it's John and I we're very well-rounded individuals, so we can talk about a lot of different things. And one of the things that we wanted to do was bring on some of our friends as well. And I feel like that's what the podcast has turned into. It's just become an excuse for us to catch up with some friends that we haven't talked to in like a few years, or in some cases, like there's a couple people we haven't spoken to in 20 years.
Like tomorrow.
Or well over 20 years. Like, so like our season finale is going to have someone that neither John and I have seen since college. So over 20 years, probably close to 25 years that we haven't seen him.
Being just a sports show, at least in the beginning, would have pigeonholed ourselves a little too much, like with some of the people that we wanted to have on who were telling us, well, we're not sports fans, so we can't be on the show. And in general, the show has turned into more of the heartbeat from Mark and I's perspective of the current news cycle of the given week that we're recording this show, which I think is really cool. We talk about morality, we talk about AI, and we talk about ethics, we talk about pop culture and technology. I mean, I think that I've had some of the best conversations I've had in the last year, just being forced to talk about something with people for 2 hours.
We tried for so long not to talk about politics, and then one time we had a guest that came up that very, very smart. He worked in the public sector at one point. So that kind of broke the ice of us of us starting to talk about politics, and now it's, I mean, yeah, you heard our last episode. We were talking about what stuff that's going on in the Middle East. So it's on everyone's mind. It's on our mind as well, and we all had opinions on it. And we had a very appropriate guest on as well, because he was married to someone of a descendant of the Middle East too. So it worked out very well.
A very important question. Aaron Rodgers, Tony the Tiger, the Egyptian president, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. F, marry, kill. Go.
Aaron Rodgers, for sure. He's a garbage human. Probably F, Tony the Tiger. I think he'd be interesting in the sack. And then whatever's left. I guess I'd marry the Egyptian guy because he's rich. That's a pretty good one, right? Yeah.
I support you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't know. My first instinct was to marry Tony the Tiger, though. I don't know. There's just something about that big grizzly cat or whatever. he would just keep me warm and safe. I feel. I mean, who wants to fuck with Tony the Tiger?
So you marry Tony, but who are you going to kill and who are you going to have sex with?
I'd probably kill the Egyptian king. And I don't know. I think I'd want to fuck Aaron Rodgers. There's something about him. I think that he just seems like a good lay. I don't know.
I'm going to have sex with the Egyptian president. I just think, he's in Egypt. It's cool. Maybe I get to touch a mummy or something afterwards. It just makes sense. I'm going to kill Aaron Rodgers because I just don't need to hear it anymore. And then I'm going to marry Tony the Tiger, and it's going to be great. He's also a tiger. He might eat my head after, so.
I mean, he probably would.
You'd probably feel pretty good.
Although then again, he might be filled with like Frosted Flakes, so I'm not really sure. I assume he eats them. Would that be weird if Tony the Tiger still ate people, but like tried to sell Frosted Flakes?
You think Tony the Tiger has a gluten allergy?
I'm gonna say yes and just start the murmur.
You heard it here first, folks. Tony the Tiger allergic to Frosted Flakes.
Breaking news. Tony the Tiger is a son of a bitch. Let's get to draft.
All right. That was me being Pete.
What was he doing?
He makes sound effects all the time because he totally doesn't have.
Is he that guy from Police Academy?
He is the guy from Police Academy.
Yes.
Really?
He is Michael Winslow.
He's also a semi-professional beatboxer. Pete is our secret weapon. I said at the top of the show, he does everything.
Oh. And now we're going to talk about his Bills. They traded away Stephon Diggs, which everybody knows by now. He went off to the Texans to go Texan. They also let safeties Micah Hyde go, Jordan Poyer go. The big stupid question that's been floating around since the Diggs trade is, are the Bills giving up?
I mean, if we were to ask our producer, Pete, no, of course they're not giving up. I mean, they still have the greatest American hero, according to Pete, in Josh Allen. And now one reason why they had to get rid of all that talent is because all the finances are catching up to them, right? I mean, I think Josh Allen is getting paid like $1,000 a minute now for that he plays. So
that makes him sound like phone sex,
doesn't it?
Really good phone sex, but
$1,000 a minute for the first minute.
Hello, Josh. What are you wearing?
Yeah, you have to make up for that, right? That's the whole beauty of the finances of the NFL, right? Because they're all backwards loaded in the contracts, and and now they're kind of paying for that. But in some respects, they also kind of had to get rid of some of those players because they're getting older. Like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are getting on the older side. They also weren't very healthy, so it is kind of Buffalo's. But Buffalo might be taking a page out of what the Chiefs did, and they got rid of some of the older talent, and they're trying to bring in the new talent. Of course, whether or not you think Patrick Mahomes is and Josh Allen are on the same level is a different story.
That's the other question that keeps coming out of this is, are they following the Chiefs model?
Well, they won the Super Bowl last year, right? So,
but think about that
for
for
a copycat league.
Think about that for a second, though. What would be the Chiefs model in the last year? To have a top 3, if not top 1 quarterback, to have a top 5 defense, to have the top tight end. That's a heck of a model.
I think a top 5 defense is the real secret weapon that is in the Chiefs camp. I mean, sure, Patrick Mahomes is the golden child, but Chris Jones and Drew Tranquill are probably 2 of the best defensive players in the whole entire league. And Chris Jones was a monster in last year's playoffs. Well, and maybe a month ago, you can see what the Chiefs did. They restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract so he would take less money. They went and they got a number 1 talent. They kept all of their defensive weapons. So, I mean, the Chiefs are at least structuring themselves to be in line to repeat. I think that another thing that we talk about on our show all the time, and which is really obvious in the league currently, is the power of top rookie skill players in wide receiver and quarterback. And so you look at when the Bengals were red hot and they had 2 number 1 wide receiver options in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And they had Joe Burrow on a rookie contract, and they almost won the Super Bowl. And now we look at the Houston Texans, who have almost the same thing. They have a top quarterback, 2 top rookie wide receivers, and so they have enough money to just go get Stephon Diggs and try to hit it this year before all those guys need to get paid.
Is it a big hit for them to get rid of Stephon Diggs? Absolutely. I mean, it frees up a lot of cap space to do that, though. And one thing that they're probably going to try and do, and benefit, this is one of the best wide receiver classes that there have been in a long, long time. In fact, while looking up this, like the top 10 wide receivers in this draft could be part of the could all go in the first 2 rounds. So there's a pretty deep wide receiver class this year. So they probably felt like, yes, they have a very low first round pick, but there's probably going to be a pretty good wide receiver still available for them to pick then.
I think they are going to be incredibly motivated to trade up, because to get the Malik Neighborses and the Odunze or Marvin Harrison, like to get those top 5 guys, well, I don't know if they have to, but I think they probably motivated to. And the thought of giving up your number 1 receiver is a thought that maybe they're going to try to be aggressive and do something crazy.
I mean, if you're talking about following the Chiefs model, then they wouldn't be trading up. They'd be sitting pat and waiting for whatever receiver probably to fall to them. Because what was Rashee Rice? I think was he a 2nd round pick? Was like the earliest the Chiefs went.
He was early stage 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if they're going to follow that model, they don't need to trade up. But just looking at the back of the first round possibilities, if they don't move, and I don't know that they will. Honestly, I don't know that they have to. Either. It would be Brian Thomas Jr. most likely, or Adonai Mitchell, who both I think are fantastic. And we're assuming that they want to replace Diggs 1 for 1. We don't know that to be true, though. But even if they waited to the 2nd round, there's Javon Baker, Troy Franklin, Xavier Legette. I think some are saying that the 2nd round might be a hair early for him, but I think he's an X. I mean, all of those guys, if you could plug them right in, and maybe they even take a 2nd wide receiver later in the draft. Then
do you think they go partially up, like not up to the first 10, but maybe in the second 10 and get somebody like Adonai Mitchell?
If they can get Adonai Mitchell or Xavier Legette, I think they're set. I think people poo-pooed too much already who's left behind, and I understand that. Curtis Samuel's old. Khalil Shakir doesn't quite get all the accolades that other people do, but if you've been paying attention to him, and I have since he's been drafted or even prior to, when he's on the field and when he gets the ball, he does stuff. If it's not his time to rise, I don't know when is. I honestly think he's the guy to watch this year in fantasy. Honestly.
Well, it's also really exciting about the Joe Brady Bills is the Joe Brady Bills figured out how to use James Cook and Dalton Kincaid.
Look how different the Bills were when they actually ran the ball.
right? And so second half, after they're, we made fun of Pete a long time because it was really obvious to tell what the Bills were going to do in any situation. Josh Allen was going to run, or he was going to throw it to Stephon Diggs, and that's really easy to defend. But once they started running into the second half, and they started doing like pre-snap motions, right? Like Pete likes to say, lots of pre-snap motions, and they were hard to defend, like a lot of the teams that are very exciting right now, like say the Baltimore Ravens, are very hard to defend.
All right, enough of those Bills. Mark, are you ready for it?
No.
You ready for this?
Patriots!
Yay.
Mark, what is the biggest need for the Patriots going into this draft?
Offense. They need to just redo the whole offense in a lot of respects. With the exception of running back, they got a pretty good one in Ramondre Stevenson. But pretty much, they have a bunch of, number 3 wide receivers. Kendrick Bourne was supposed to be the number 1 receiver last year, and then he got hurt. A lot of people think that they're going to go quarterback with the number 3 pick.
Do you?
Personally, I think they're going to, but I would much rather have them Marvin Harrison Jr. than a quarterback, personally.
I know who I think is going to go at 3 to the Patriots. Who do you think is going to go quarterback-wise?
I think it's going to be Drake May. I would much rather have them have J.J. McCarthy, I think.
Really?
In all seriousness. Yes.
Why?
I know there's something about a Michigan quarterback on the Patriots. Really good.
Has that worked before?
I believe so.
I watched a really interesting article, reel today on Drake May and his athleticism and his ability to possibly play tight end.
What?
Yeah, I did. I was just like, that is very interesting. I don't know why he would ever do that, but
no, he's got too big of an arm to do that.
Go on.
I mean, we have to remember that maybe the greatest tight end to play in the last 5 years was a college quarterback in Travis Kelce.
Yeah, but Kelce wasn't as good of a quarterback as Drake May was.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I'm throwing a monkey wrench. That's all.
Where did you hear that? That is the craziest goddamn
That's
thing.
A very hairy monkey wrench there.
I saw it on the internet today. The internet never lies to me.
I was
the internet
pooping in a public bathroom and I looked down. There it was. Drake May's a tight end, I guess. And I just cleaned the pubes off the bowl and moved on.
I would much rather have them draft Marvin Harrison Jr. at the number 3 pick, or maybe even trade down to get where Marvin Harrison Jr. would go, like 4 or 5.
So if you get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3, and you'll definitely get him at 3 if that's what they want, who throws him the ball? Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett.
Well, that's interesting. Who did you say in the second then they would take? Penix?
Michael Penix Jr.
I don't think he'll be there in the second.
You think he's going to get taken late first?
Yeah, just a gut feeling.
It's possible.
There's too many thirsty teams and not enough chairs at the table. Someone's going to go early. And I think Penix might just be the line of demarcation where he's the last one in the first round before you start getting into second round guys that personally I think would be Bo Nix or somebody like that.
No, I think from day one, Jacoby will be starting. Like, regardless of who they draft. Even if they draft a Drake May, Jacoby is probably starting week 1. I have a friend who used to live in an apartment building below Jacoby Brissett, and she told me that he used to lift weights, I guess, in his apartment at like 4 a.m. And he would do it all like people that are lifting heavy weights do. Like when they're bench pressing, they all just drop them at the end, and she would hear them like dropping the weights.
That's really obnoxious.
So what you're saying is Jacoby Brissett is a shit neighbor.
Jacoby Brissett's an asshole. You've heard it here first.
At least he was like 10. Yes. At least he was back in the day.
You're at 103 and you're not going to pick a quarterback. You have to trade back. How do you sit at 103 thinking, especially Gerard Mayo being first-time head coach, he's going to be, we will never be here again.
And that's why they're going to go quarterback, because this is Gerard Mayo's first year. He has to pick that future franchise quarterback. I know that's what they're going to do. There's no doubt in my mind that they're picking quarterback. More than likely it's going to be Drake May, who's not going to be their tight end, John, no matter how much you want him to be.
Shut up.
And yeah, they probably will go wide receiver for their next pick. Presumably they'll keep their second round pick at the what is that 35 or whatever it's going to be.
I've seen some mocks where Javon Baker is there at the end of the third round. So
Wow.
if they wanted, I don't think that's going to be the case, but you never know. Crazy things happen in the draft.
I've seen mock drafts that Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to like 9 or 10.
I
There's
doubt.
no way that's happening.
Yeah,
There's
I don't
no way
think that's happening either. But point being that they could still get more receiver help and not go in the first 2 rounds for it. I think so.
That's true. That's true.
I do agree with you though that the offense is the point of emphasis. I looked at this depth chart. Defense is not bad. I know they actually ranked 15th last year, and I think that was more a case of a bad offense putting them in bad spots because they've got a lot of good people on their roster defensively.
They do. That's one thing that Belichick always did well. He always drafted the defense very, very well, and they're all very young too.
Do you have any insight or thoughts on the new OC, Alex Van Pelt? I know he's got a little bit of experience calling plays, very little, but apparently influenced by Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak.
And that's the thing. Like most people, I think, don't really know what kind of offense he's going to be, what he's going to have. They're assuming it's going to be like a Mike Shanahan offense. It's to be seen the kind of offense that the Patriots are going to have. They're a clean slate, so that's kind of another reason why you don't really know who they're gonna pick. I think this draft, like, there's a lot of unknowns going on in Foxborough right now because it's a brand new coaching staff.
Who would Bill pick?
Bill would probably trade that first round pick and get more draft picks.
Giants! Time for Giants!
In my dream state, Tommy DeVito comes back and he sells chicken parm to everyone in New Jersey, and Italians rule the NFL. But obviously, he's just an average guy from Jersey, and that's not going to happen.
So what you're telling me is the biggest need in the draft for the Giants is to build around Tommy Cutlets.
Yes, build around Tommy Cutlets, the future of the Meadowlands.
Now,
is he still sleeping on his mom's couch?
He is still sleeping on his mom's couch.
That's just smart.
Right, this is good finances.
Mom's gonna cook and make my bed for me?
He's
yeah,
got
dude.
Good people in his camp. It's all sorts of good. I think the Giants have a real problem. For years, the Giants have had a very short-sighted front office, and there are a number of articles, but a number of stats that say that the Giants have one of the worst in the NFL draft retention rates. They draft people and they leave. Look at Saquon Barkley, who is now an Eagle. You're welcome, by the way. So what do the Giants need to do? Well, the Giants, I think, are a very ill-formed offense currently under the sharp eye of Joe Shoheen. But what they need to do is rebuild. They need to trade out that first-round pick, get as many draft picks as they can get, and start putting a team together. But I don't think the Giants are going to do that. I think that the Giants are stuck with Daniel Jones for 2024, but not for 2025. There is an out in his contract. It saves them what looks like $12 million if they drop him next year, not this year. The Giants also were pretty active in the preseason, getting top 5 edge rusher Brian Burns and having already probably 2 of the best defensive guys in the league in Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. So, I mean, their defense is in a really, really good spot. I believe that they are stuck in their head that Daniel Jones never had any weapons and they're going to go get a wide receiver at 6. Now, which wide receiver? They seem to be very hot for Malik Neighbors. I think that Malik Neighbors would be a really good fit in New York. If they don't, I would obviously like Marvin Harrison, but I think Malik Neighbors would be fine, as well as Rome Odunze. I think at 6, you have kind of the ability to get any of those top 3 wide receivers. I would really like it if the Giants didn't do that and started from scratch. I don't know if scratch is one of the top, probably at that point, 5 quarterbacks. I think that they probably have a shot for McCarthy, though, as well as Jaden Daniels, maybe. You're right. I think Drake May is going to go much higher. Obviously, Caleb Williams is going to go much higher. Obviously, those guys are top 3. But it's interesting that the Giants, back in the beginning of this travesty, picked Daniel Jones at number 6. So will they drop? I looked it up. The $69 million that they'll lose if they drop Daniel Jones this year, maybe. They've done crazier shit, that's for sure.
I actually do think the Giants have a decent defensive roster as well.
They are defensively very strong, but that's the model. The model has always been make a defensively strong New York Giants and let the rest of it come into place.
A couple other questions I would have for the Giants, though, going into the draft is running back. Last time I checked, Devin Singletary wasn't anything until last year. And he was something last year. He was useful. He was decent. But I don't see how he would repeat that again behind the Giants line unless they've been building it. Have they been adding to it all this offseason and I just haven't seen it?
Oh, no, the O-line's still terrible.
Okay,
Yeah,
so Devin Singletary's not going to be a thing this year. I don't know who thinks he's going to be.
I mean, Devin Singletary is clearly not the answer.
That's why my hot take for this, I think the Giants need to go offensive lineman in the first round. They need to beef up that O-line because I mean we saw even Patrick Mahomes behind a really shitty offensive line is a less than average quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another reason why I think the Giants don't really know what they have in Danny Dimes is because he was running for his life half the time.
The only years that they won the Super Bowls were years where Eli had top receivers. The Victor Cruz era, right? Those guys.
You're calling Victor Cruz a top receiver?
I'm just talking about. It's the only guy whose name I could remember.
He had a lot of personality.
Do you think Mario Manningham is also a Hall of Famer? Oh,
yeah.
What about David Tyree catching the fucking ball in his helmet? Sorry,
Victor Cruz always had salsa.
Are you still a little sore from that, Mark?
I will always be sore with that.
A little helmet catch ruined that season. I really did actually like watching Tommy DeVito throw to Wan'Dale Robinson. And Wan'Dale Robinson, honestly, at the end of last season in general, I think he was really impressive.
Yeah, I think you just have a man crush on Tommy Cutlets. You probably would applaud him like while he's taking a dump or something like that. It's like you just love Tommy DeVito, John. He's your long lost Italian cousin.
He probably is, by the way.
Is it true? If he was Irish, would you still applaud him when he takes a dump?
Probably not.
What is the Eagles' biggest need going into the draft?
How do you replace Jason Kelce?
Though Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, who just retired, they are both gone now. They've got in-house replacements already. With Cam Jurgens, who they drafted, he was handpicked by Jason Kelce to be his replacement. And then Jalen Carter is there for Fletcher Cox. So they've already got guys to fill in both those guys. I think if you're looking for who are they going to replace, you're already looking out another year. So Lane Johnson has maybe 2 years left, maybe 3. Or Brandon Graham is going after this year. And I don't even think that he is going to be more than a rotational starter this year because Vic Fangio came in now and he's transitioning the defense to a 3-4. So I honestly think we're looking to replace guys who aren't quite gone yet, and I think edge is probably what they need to do in the first.
But Jeff, do you think that they can get high enough to grab a guy like Graham Barton from Duke, who is just a beast? 6'5", 313. I just looked it up because I was curious.
I think the guy that they're targeting is UCLA's Laitu Latu at edge, who's been comped to guys like TJ Watt, which is ridiculous. Especially ridiculous. After he's already come off of a medical retirement, so to speak, and then came back. But he's basically regarded as the most skilled pass rusher in the draft. And if you put him on the edge next to Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and let's say Milton Williams or Josh Sweat or whoever they have over there, I think he could be a big influence in year one rotating through and then also fill for the need in the future. But I don't know that Latu's going to be there at, what are they at? 22.
Yeah.
And you never know with Howie Roseman. He's, pew, pew, pew. He's always making deals and doing stuff. So, he couldn't sit still last year at 10. He had to move to 9. So I don't know if he's going to move up to get someone like Latu because honestly, I think offensive line is just as good a case. They could just sit there at 22 and say, Latu, if he falls to us, and if he doesn't, go offensive line. I've seen some of the pre-draft visits they have coming in. People are saying, well, they've had 7 offensive linemen in already, 3 D linemen. So clearly they're looking at getting an offensive lineman in the first. And I don't think that's true. I think it's actually the opposite. I think they've got their sights set on a guy or 2, maybe even Mo Kamara if he falls that far and they want him, for defensive line. And then in the second, they've got all this information about all these offensive linemen. They know whoever falls to us in the second week, we'll take them. That's my guess. Because why would you do that much research on somebody or that many people in one position and then just pick one and then you didn't research everybody else. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Do you think they have no need for skill players like a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. or something?
I think they absolutely need to get another wide receiver in a wide receiver rich draft, but I don't know how high they could possibly reach for one and have it make sense. They always invest in the trenches. That to me is what the first round is for, and the Eagles follow that to a T. You get the QB, you get after the QB, or you protect the QB. And that's all you do in the first round. So getting a wide receiver in the late third as a comp pick, maybe, I could see it, but I don't know that it's a high need. I think we need a corner way more than we need a wide receiver 3 higher in this draft.
You might need another like high quality inside linebacker too, with a Vic Fangio defense.
Can you guys do the tush push without Jason Kelce? Does it work without him?
I think you can, because it probably came more from Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coordinator or coach.
Okay.
But I don't know that they do as much this year. I don't have a real good stat reason why. I just have a gut feeling they're going to do it less. We talk about the Eagles, Sirianni. The way it ended last year, people were talking about him being on the hot seat. Dable, hot seat. Sean McDermott with the Bills, hot seat. Like all these teams that are winning, well, not the Giants, sorry buddy. All these winning teams that made the playoffs, like they've got coaches on the hot seat. The only one who's not was Gerard Mayo, and that's because it's his first year. I guess my point is, what the fuck?
I mean, I think if you look at Buffalo as an example, and I'll talk about the other New York teams since the Giants are fucking terrible, you are sort of waning past the window for Josh Allen. And if you don't hit that window, all the money that Josh Allen is making, and you don't get at least one, that's a failure, honestly. I mean, they have been knocking on the door so many times. The best team in the AFC, the best team in the AFC. This year, they even stopped the Chiefs from getting the number 1 seed through actual magic, and they still just lost to them. They just can't get past the divisional. They just can't do it. They don't know how. And I don't even think it's choking, because I'll tell you what, they just got outplayed by the Chiefs in that game.
I think they got outcoached too. Like, I've never been a huge fan of Sean McDermott. I think he doesn't possess that quality to get Buffalo over the hump, and I think that's why he's on the hot seat, is because he probably should have had at least one Super Bowl with Josh Allen by now. There have definitely been some circumstances that were a little iffy. I mean, hey, that overtime loss to the Chiefs, was that truly McDermott's fault? Was that just the luck of the just some bad luck, possibly? But there have been other decisions that Sean McDermott seems to make, and sometimes the Bills just don't seem prepared to play the game. That is purely on coaching. So I am actually a believer that Sean McDermott probably deserves to be on the hot seat, is because I don't quite think he's the coach that's going to get it done in Buffalo, personally. Sirianni, I don't quite get Sirianni, especially one season removed from being in the Super Bowl.
The question I had about Sirianni last year was, okay, if everything fell apart and you blame the offensive coordinator, he was new, you blame the defensive coordinator, he was new, you'd like to think that your coach could pull it together. Whatever was going on, he could at least see it from on high, make a correction, make a change, whatever. It almost seemed like whoever was going to be able to fix that mess at the end of last year for the Eagles wasn't in the building. Mm-hmm. That's the part that scared me. Was I don't hate Sirianni, but it's like, okay, if we get rid of our offensive coordinator and bring in a new one, and we get rid of our defensive coordinator and bring in a new one, what would you say you do here? What do you bring to the table?
It got real dark, Jeff. You lost to the Giants, my man. It got real dark.
And I saw that coming a mile away. Blood in the water, man.
What do you think happened, all those losses, after that great start? I
don't know. And that's the thing that bothers me. No one seems to know. Kelsey, Fletch, like everybody who talks and goes off into podcasts and whatever, none of them know. Nobody knows. And it's so weird. I guess I wasn't really for firing Nick Sirianni, because I do believe we've gone through a number of coaches in the last few years, and the case was made that that's maybe an unattractive thing to new head coach hires. If you keep jettisoning your coach every 2-3 years,
especially after winning the Super Bowl, they did the same thing to Doug Peterson.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Sirianni at least got them to the Super Bowl. Like I can't believe we're gonna turn on him that quick. But it was just
And he
really
cried.
odd. So did Chris Jones last year, and no one pointed that shit out.
No.
He was right. He even told another guy, he's like, "Watch out, I'm gonna cry." And the guy's like, "I might cry with you." And then he did, and they filmed it, and no one gave him shit. You don't know Sirianni. What if he lost somebody in a slag war or something? I
In
don't
a
know.
fire.
Yeah, what? That he just remembered at the
He did,
Super
he did.
Bowl.
It was a tragedy, a real tragedy, but he had to move on and win the game for the Kipper.
Thanks to Mark and John for stopping by. That was fun. Let's never do it again. If you want to listen to the If These Balls Could Talk podcast, and you should, you can find it absolutely anywhere you already enjoy podcasts, or visit their website, iftheseballscouldtalkpod.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching Shut Up Football. We do appreciate it. Please say hi to your mom for me, and we'll catch you next time. Peace!
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.